Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never believed in ghost stories. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, I was the kind of person who always looked for logical explanations. Strange sounds were old pipes. Shadows were tricks of light. Creepy stories were just stories. That belief stayed with me until I was 28 years old and took a job at a nightclub called Velvet Room. What happened there changed everything. Even now, 7 years later, I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that place and about the woman in the red dress. After graduating from college, life hadn't gone exactly as planned. I had studied business administration and dreamed of opening my own company someday, but reality hit hard. My father suffered a stroke, medical bills piled up, and I needed money fast. So I accepted a management position at Velvet Room, one of the most popular nightclubs in downtown Cincinnati, Ohio. The club was famous. Every weekend, hundreds of people packed inside. Music thundered through the walls. Neon lights flashed across crowded dance floors. People came there to forget their problems. At least that's what they thought. The building itself was old, very old. Before becoming a nightclub, it had been a theater in the 1940s. Before that, it was rumored to have been a hotel. The place carried decades of history within its walls. When I first arrived, I noticed something strange. None of the employees stayed after closing unless absolutely necessary. Not the bartenders, not the security guards, not even the cleaning crew. At first, I assumed they simply wanted to go home. Then one night I asked why. The response was always the same. Just lock up and leave. No explanation, no details, just those words. One Friday evening, I was reviewing inventory when an older bartender named Mike sat beside me. Mike was in his 60s. He had worked there longer than anyone else. His face looked tired, like someone carrying a burden. "You ever hear about Emily?" he asked. I shook my head. "No." His expression darkened. "Good." Then he stood up and walked away. That was it. No explanation, nothing. But from that moment, curiosity started growing inside me. Who was Emily? Why did everyone seem uncomfortable talking about her? A week later, I finally found an answer. While organizing old storage boxes in the basement, I discovered a newspaper clipping. The paper was yellow and fragile. The headline read, "Local woman found dead after nightclub incident." The article was dated October 1998. According to the report, a 23-year-old woman named Emily Harper had vanished after spending a night at the club. 3 days later, her body was discovered in an abandoned alley several blocks away. Police never solved the case. No suspects, no witnesses, no answers. Just another cold case. I stared at the photograph attached to the article. Emily was smiling. She wore a bright red dress. Something about the picture made me uncomfortable. I couldn't explain why. I folded the article and slipped it into my pocket. That night I asked Mike. The moment I mentioned Emily's name, the color drained from his face. "Where did you hear that?" "I found an article." Mike sighed heavily. Then he leaned closer. "What I'm about to tell you stays between us." I nodded. "After Emily died," he said quietly, "people started seeing her." I laughed nervously. "You mean like a ghost?" Mike didn't smile. "Every few months, someone reports seeing a woman in a red dress." The room suddenly felt colder. "They always see her near closing time." "Who sees her?" "Employees mostly." I crossed my arms. "And?" Mike looked directly into my eyes. "They never see her face clearly." A chill traveled down my spine. I wanted to dismiss the story. I really did. But strange things began happening. Small things at first. Nothing dramatic. Nothing impossible. Just strange. One night I checked security cameras before leaving. A woman stood alone on the dance floor. She wore red. I assumed she was a customer. When I walked downstairs to escort her out, the dance floor was empty. Nobody was there. I reviewed the footage again. The woman had disappeared, not walked away, not exited, simply gone. I blamed the camera system. Old equipment, technical issues. That explanation helped me sleep. For a while. Then came the night everything changed. It was late October. Rain hammered the city. The club had been packed for a Halloween event. By 2:30 a.m., everyone was gone. The music stopped. Lights came on. Silence settled over the building. I completed my closing duties while the last security guard headed home. For the first time, I was completely alone, or so I thought. Around 3 a.m., I heard music. Very faint, almost impossible to hear. I froze. The sound came from upstairs. Slow jazz music, old-fashioned. Nothing like what we played in the club. I walked toward the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the last. The music grew louder. My heartbeat matched its rhythm. When I reached the dance floor, the room was empty. The music stopped instantly. Silence. I checked every corner. Nothing. No speakers active. No customers. No explanation. I was about to leave when I noticed something. A woman standing near the far wall. Red dress. Long dark hair. Motionless. Watching me. My stomach tightened. "Ma'am?" No response. "You can't be here. We're closed." Still nothing. She slowly turned and walked toward a hallway leading to old storage rooms. I followed, partly because it was my job, partly because I wanted answers. The hallway was dimly lit. The woman's footsteps echoed ahead. Then she disappeared around a corner. I hurried after her. But when I reached the end of the hall, nobody was there. Only an old locked door, a door leading to a section of the original building no longer used. I stared at it, confused. The woman had nowhere else to go. Then I noticed something strange. The door was slightly open. That was impossible. The door remained locked, always. Only ownership had keys. Yet there it was, open, waiting. I should have left. Instead, I stepped inside. Dust covered everything. Old theater seats, broken furniture, rotting curtains. The air smelled ancient. My flashlight illuminated decades of forgotten history. Then I heard crying. A woman crying softly somewhere in the darkness. My pulse exploded. "Hello?" No answer. Only crying. I followed the sound deeper into the abandoned section. The crying became louder, more desperate, more painful. Then it suddenly stopped. I rounded a corner and saw her, the woman in red, standing beneath a broken light fixture. This time I could see her face. She looked exactly like the photograph. Emily Harper. My entire body went cold. Every logical explanation vanished. She wasn't moving, wasn't speaking, just staring. Then she slowly raised one trembling hand and pointed toward a wall. Nothing else. Just pointed. Seconds later, she disappeared. Not walked away. Not hidden. Gone. Like turning off a television. I stood frozen, unable to breathe, unable to think. Eventually, I forced myself toward the wall she'd indicated. The surface looked ordinary, until I noticed loose bricks. Someone had repaired part of the wall years ago. Poorly. My hands shook as I touched them. Several bricks shifted. Behind them was a small cavity. Inside sat a rusted metal box. I carried the box upstairs. Inside were photographs, letters, and a cassette tape. The letters belonged to Emily. Most were addressed to a man named Ryan Mercer, a former employee. One letter changed everything. Emily wrote that Ryan had become obsessed with her. She feared him. She wanted to end their relationship. The final letter stated she planned to meet him at the nightclub on the night she disappeared. The next morning, I contacted police. Detectives reopened the cold case. Ryan Mercer had died years earlier in a car accident, but investigators discovered evidence connecting him to Emily's disappearance. Additional searches uncovered hidden records and witness statements overlooked during the original investigation. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, Emily's family received answers. Not every detail, but enough. Enough to finally understand what happened. Enough to find peace. Velvet Room closed 2 years later. Developers purchased the property and demolished the building. Today, a modern office complex stands there. Most people passing by have no idea what once occupied that ground, or what secrets remain buried inside those walls. Sometimes I wonder if Emily truly wanted justice, or if she simply wanted someone to know the truth. Either way, she found the right person. A year after the building was demolished, I attended a charity event downtown. The venue overlooked the old nightclub location. As I stood near a window, I glanced outside. A woman stood across the street, red dress, long dark hair, watching me. My heart nearly stopped. Then she smiled. Not a frightening smile, a grateful one. The kind someone gives when they're finally free. A passing bus blocked my view for only a second. When it moved, she was gone. I never saw her again. And honestly, I hope I never do. Because some mysteries deserve answers. But once you find them, you realize the truth can be far more terrifying than the ghost story. Story 2, I never believed in the kind of stories that keep people awake at night. Not until the Obsidian Lounge. My name is Alex Rivera. I grew up in a quiet suburb outside Milwaukee, the kind of place where Friday nights meant high school football games and cheap beer by the lake. After college, I chased a job in marketing to Chicago, thinking the big city would finally make me feel alive. Instead, it hollowed me out. Long hours, soulless high-rises, and a brutal breakup with my fiancée Sarah left me drifting through weekends alone in my Lincoln Park apartment, scrolling through forums at 3 a.m., looking for anything that felt real. That's how I first heard the rumors about the Obsidian Lounge. It wasn't on any official list, no website, no Instagram. You didn't find it. You were chosen. People whispered about it in private discords and deleted Reddit threads. An unmarked black door in an old industrial building near the Chicago River, hidden behind a shuttered meatpacking plant in the West Loop. Inside was supposedly the most exclusive, hedonistic nightclub in America. Velvet booths that felt like sin itself, music that crawled under your skin, drinks that tasted better than anything you'd ever had. But the real draw was the rumor that once you stepped inside, time behaved differently. Some said you could lose entire nights. Others claimed people went in and never came out the same, if they came out at all. I laughed it off at first, urban legend stuff. Then my old college roommate Marcus texted me one random Thursday. "You still looking for something different? Got an invite for Obsidian this Saturday. One guest. You in?" Marcus had always been the wild one, now a hedge fund guy who partied in circles I couldn't afford. I almost deleted the message, but something in me, that hollow part left by Sarah and the endless gray routine, said yes. I needed to feel something again. Saturday came. I wore my best black button-down and met Marcus outside the old brick building at 11:45 p.m. The street was deserted except for a faint bass thump coming from somewhere underground. No line, no bouncer visible, just a matte black door set into the wall with a small obsidian stone embedded where a handle should be. Marcus pressed his palm to the stone. It glowed faintly purple for a second, then clicked open. "Remember," he said, grinning, "whatever happens in there stays in there. And don't ask too many questions." We descended a narrow staircase lit by crimson bulbs. The air grew thick with perfume, smoke, and something metallic I couldn't place. At the bottom, the club opened up like a living thing. The Obsidian Lounge was breathtaking. 3 levels wrapped around a central dance floor that seemed to sink into an endless black mirror. Chandeliers made of what looked like real bone hung from the ceiling, dripping with crystals. The music wasn't just loud. It pulsed in my chest like a second heartbeat. Beautiful people moved in perfect sync, laughing, touching, losing themselves. Bartenders in tailored black suits served glowing cocktails without ever asking for money. Marcus bought us 2 drinks called Veil Lifters. They tasted like black cherries and lightning. After the second one, the edges of reality softened. Colors bled, time stretched. I don't know when Marcus disappeared. One minute he was beside me laughing with 2 women in shimmering dresses. The next, the crowd had swallowed him. I wandered deeper, past private booths where people whispered secrets and touched in ways that made me look away. On the second floor, I found a lounge area with leather couches and a massive obsidian wall that reflected everything but seemed delayed. Like the reflections were half a second behind. That's when I met Elena. She was sitting alone nursing a drink, her dark hair falling across one shoulder like spilled ink. Her eyes were the kind of green that made you forget what you were saying. She smiled when she saw me staring. "First time?" she asked, voice low and warm. "Yeah, you." She laughed softly. I come here when I need to remember I'm still alive. We talked for what felt like hours. She told me she was a photographer who specialized in abandoned buildings. I told her about Sarah, about how Chicago had started to feel like a cage. She listened like no one had in years. When she touched my hand, electricity ran up my arm. "Come with me," she whispered. "There's a better view upstairs." I followed her through a hidden door behind the obsidian wall. The staircase beyond was older, stone instead of modern steel. The music faded into a distant hum. We emerged onto a rooftop garden I hadn't known existed. String lights, black roses, and a view of the Chicago skyline that looked almost too perfect, like a painting. Elena leaned against the railing. "You feel it, don't you? How this place takes what you're missing and gives it back." I did feel it. For the first time in months, I wasn't empty. She kissed me then. It was hungry, desperate. The kind of kiss that makes you forget every promise you ever made. When we broke apart, her eyes had changed. The green was darker now, almost black. "You have a good soul, Alex," she murmured. "Strong. That's rare here." Before I could ask what she meant, the rooftop door slammed open. Marcus stumbled out, face pale, eyes wide. "Alex, we have to go. Now." Elena's smile didn't waver. "He's not ready to leave yet, Marcus. Are you?" That's when I noticed the scars on her wrists, old but deliberate, and the way the string lights above her cast no shadow. Marcus grabbed my arm. "She's not what you think. None of them are. This place, it's been here since the 1920s, back when it was a speakeasy during Prohibition. The original owner made a deal. The club feeds on longing, on regret, on desire. It gives you the perfect night, then it keeps pieces of you. People don't disappear. They stay. Forever." Elena laughed, but the sound was wrong, layered like multiple voices. "Marcus has been coming here for 3 years. He's already half mine. Aren't you, darling?" I looked at my friend. Really looked. His skin seemed thinner. His eyes had a glassy sheen. The confident hedge fund guy I knew looked like a faded photograph of himself. I backed away. Elena's form flickered. For a split second, I saw something else beneath her beauty. Hollow sockets, stretched skin, a mouth too wide. The rooftop began to dissolve. The skyline warped. I ran for the door with Marcus right behind me. We tumbled down the stone stairs back into the main club. But everything had changed. The beautiful crowd now looked wrong. Their smiles were too wide. Their movements repeated in small loops. A woman dancing near us had the same 4-second sequence of hair flips and laughter playing over and over. The music was slowing, distorting, like a record winding down. We pushed toward the exit. Hands grabbed at us, cold, insistent. Whispers followed. "Stay. You belong here. We'll make it perfect." Marcus tripped. When I turned, Elena was on him, her fingers elongating into black tendrils that sank into his chest. He screamed, but the sound came out as laughter. The crowd joined in. I ran. The staircase to the surface felt longer than before. Steps multiplied. The red lights flickered like dying heartbeats. Behind me, I heard Elena's voice calling my name, sweet and terrible. I burst through the black door into the alley. Rain was falling. My phone said it was 6:47 a.m. Sunday, but my watch, which had stopped at 2:13 a.m., said otherwise. I called Marcus for days. His number went straight to voicemail. His co-workers said he hadn't shown up to work. His apartment was empty except for a single obsidian stone on the kitchen counter. I tried to forget, threw myself into work, deleted every app where I'd seen the rumors. But 2 weeks later, I woke up at 3:33 a.m. to a text from an unknown number. "You left something behind." Attached was a photo, me and Elena on that rooftop kissing. Except in the photo, my eyes were already turning black. I blocked the number, changed my phone, moved to a new apartment across town. Last night, I went out for a walk to clear my head. The city felt quieter than usual. As I passed an alley near the river, I saw it, an unmarked black door with a small obsidian stone where the handle should be. It wasn't there yesterday, I'm sure of it. I stood there for a long time, heart hammering. Part of me, the hollow part, wanted to press my palm to the stone, to see Elena again, to feel that perfect night one more time. My hand moved toward it before I could stop myself. I pulled back at the last second and ran home. But this morning, when I looked in the mirror, I noticed something. The reflection blinked half a second after I did. I think the club is still hungry, and it knows where I live now. Story 3. The Last Call at Black Harbor. I never believed in ghost stories. That probably sounds strange coming from someone who spent nearly 4 years working security at one of the most notorious nightclubs in the city, but it's true. I believed in drunk people. I believed in criminals. I believed in lies, jealousy, and violence. Those things were real. Ghosts weren't, at least not until the summer of 2021. My name is Ethan Carter, and this happened in Baltimore, Maryland. I was 29 years old and working nights at a nightclub called Black Harbor, a massive converted warehouse near the waterfront. The place was famous throughout the city. Every Friday and Saturday night, thousands of people packed the dance floor. The money was good. The hours were terrible. But after my father died from a heart attack, I needed every dollar I could earn. My mother had health problems. My younger sister, Ashley, was trying to finish college. Bills never stopped coming. So I worked every night, every weekend, every holiday. Black Harbor became my second home. The building itself had a strange history. Long before it became a nightclub, it had been an industrial shipping warehouse built in the 1940s. Old employees used to tell stories about accidents that happened there. Workers crushed by machinery, people disappearing near the docks, a fire that supposedly killed a night watchman decades earlier. Most of us laughed about those stories. They were just urban legends. At least that's what I thought. Everything started on a rainy Thursday night. The club wasn't open yet. I was walking through the basement storage area with my flashlight, performing a routine security inspection. The basement sat beneath the main dance floor. Most employees hated going down there. The concrete walls leaked moisture. The lights flickered constantly. And there was always a strange smell in the air, like old water and rust. As I checked the storage rooms, I heard something. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Walking somewhere in the darkness. I stopped moving. The sound stopped too. "Hello?" I called. Nothing. I swept my flashlight across the corridor. Empty. No one there. I shrugged it off. Probably a maintenance worker. Then I continued my inspection. A few seconds later, I heard the footsteps again. Closer this time. My stomach tightened. I turned around immediately. Nothing. The hallway remained empty. That's when I noticed something strange. A metal door at the far end of the basement stood slightly open. I'd walked past it hundreds of times. It was always locked, always. Yet now it was open, just a few inches. I approached carefully. The door led to an abandoned section of the warehouse that wasn't used anymore. Most employees didn't even know it existed. As I pushed the door wider, rusty hinges groaned loudly. My flashlight revealed a narrow hallway covered in dust. Nobody had been there for years. Or so I thought, because there were footprints. Fresh footprints, leading deeper into the darkness. I immediately assumed someone had broken into the building. I radioed another security guard named Marcus. "Marcus, I need backup in the basement." "What's wrong?" "Possible trespasser." "I'll be there." I followed the footprints. The hallway eventually opened into a large, forgotten storage room. Old crates sat against the walls. Broken equipment littered the floor. Then my flashlight landed on something that made me freeze. A chair. An old wooden chair. Placed directly in the center of the room. And sitting on that chair was a photograph. I walked closer. The photograph showed a man wearing a security uniform. A man standing in front of Black Harbor. A man who looked exactly like me. My blood ran cold. Same face, same eyes, same build. It looked like someone had taken my picture. Except the photo looked decades old. The edges were yellow. The paper was damaged. It couldn't be me. That was impossible. "Ethan!" Marcus's voice echoed from behind me. I nearly jumped. When he reached me, I immediately showed him the photograph. "What the hell is this?" I asked. Marcus stared. His expression changed. "You found it." "What do you mean?" "I've heard about this." "Heard about what?" Marcus looked nervous. "The old security guard." "What old security guard?" "The one who died here." I laughed. "This isn't funny." "I'm serious." Marcus grabbed the photo. "My grandfather worked at this warehouse in the 70s. I stared at him. He told me there was a night watchman named Daniel Harper. I looked back at the image. The resemblance was unbelievable. Marcus continued. They said he died during a fire. I forced a smile. So you're telling me a dead security guard looks exactly like me? Marcus didn't answer, because he looked just as disturbed as I felt. The next few weeks became increasingly strange. Employees reported seeing a security guard walking through the club after closing, a man nobody recognized. Whenever someone approached him, he disappeared. Bartenders saw reflections of him in mirrors. DJs claimed they spotted him standing near the stage. Even customers mentioned him. The descriptions were always identical: tall, dark hair, security uniform, and every description matched me. Then came the night everything changed. It was Saturday, the busiest night of the month. Nearly 2,000 people filled the building. Music thundered through the walls. Lights flashed everywhere. The crowd was enormous. Around midnight, I received an emergency radio call. Security to basement, immediately. The voice sounded panicked. I ran downstairs. When I arrived, nobody was there. The hallway stood empty. The radio crackled. Silence. Then I heard something. A voice. Soft. Whispering. Ethan. I spun around. Nothing. Ethan. The whisper echoed again. My heart pounded. The voice seemed to come from behind the old metal door. The same door. Against my better judgment, I opened it. The abandoned hallway stretched before me. Dark, silent, empty. Then I saw him, standing at the far end, a security guard, his face hidden in shadow. He slowly raised one arm and pointed behind me. I turned. A loud explosion shook the building. The entire basement trembled. Alarms erupted instantly. Screams echoed from upstairs. My radio came alive. Fire! We have a fire! Everything happened fast. A faulty electrical system had ignited inside a storage room beneath the dance floor. Smoke spread rapidly. Hundreds of people rushed toward exits. Panic erupted. For the next hour, security, firefighters, and police worked desperately to evacuate everyone. Thankfully, nobody died. Several people suffered minor injuries. But it could have been far worse, much worse. Later, investigators discovered something shocking. The fire had started only a few feet from a gas line. If the flames had reached it, a massive explosion could have killed hundreds. I sat outside the building at dawn, exhausted, covered in sweat, trying to process everything. Then Marcus approached. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. He sat beside me. After a moment, he asked quietly, Did you see him? I looked at him. What? The guard. I felt chills. How do you know? Marcus stared toward the damaged building. Because I saw him too. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, I asked, Who was Daniel Harper? Marcus sighed. Then he told me something nobody else knew. Decades earlier, Daniel Harper had been working security during a warehouse fire. He'd noticed the danger before anyone else. He spent precious minutes warning workers and helping them escape. Nearly everyone survived because of him. But Daniel never made it out. His body was found near the basement, exactly where I had seen the mysterious figure. The story stayed with me. Months passed. Black Harbor reopened after repairs. Life slowly returned to normal. The sightings stopped. No more whispers. No more strange footsteps. No more appearances. It was as if whatever had haunted the building had finally found peace. Then one night I made a discovery. Workers renovating part of the basement uncovered an old locker hidden behind a wall. Inside, they found several personal belongings. Among them was a photograph, a newer photograph, one taken shortly before Daniel Harper's death. This time the image was clearer, much clearer. When I saw it, my hands started shaking, because Marcus had been wrong. Daniel Harper didn't merely resemble me. He looked identical, like a twin separated by 50 years. No one could explain it. Not investigators, not historians, not anyone. I still have a copy of that photograph. Locked inside a drawer at home, sometimes I take it out and stare at it. I compare his face to mine. The resemblance remains impossible, and every time I look at it, I remember the moment he pointed behind me, the moment that saved hundreds of lives. I don't know what I saw in that basement. Maybe it was a ghost. Maybe it was something else entirely. But one thing is certain. If I hadn't followed that figure into the darkness that night, many people would never have made it home, and neither would I. Story 4. The Last Shift at Velvet Room. I never believed in ghost stories. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I was the kind of person who laughed whenever someone talked about haunted buildings or supernatural encounters. My father was a police officer for nearly 20 years, and he always taught me that every strange event had a logical explanation. For most of my life, I believed him, until the night I worked my final shift at a nightclub called the Velvet Room. Even now, nearly 7 years later, I still wake up sweating whenever I think about what happened there. And I still avoid nightclubs. It started in the summer of 2019. I was 27 years old and struggling financially after losing my marketing job. Bills were piling up, my savings were nearly gone, and I desperately needed work. That's when I found an ad online. The Velvet Room was hiring security staff. The pay was surprisingly good. Too good, honestly. But desperation has a way of making people ignore warning signs. The nightclub sat on the edge of downtown Portland near an old industrial district. During the day, the area looked abandoned. Empty warehouses lined the streets, and broken windows stared down from aging brick buildings. The club itself looked strange. Unlike the modern bars nearby, the Velvet Room occupied a massive brick structure built sometime in the 1920s. The place had history, a lot of history. During my interview, the manager, a heavy-set man named Frank Reynolds, seemed eager to hire me, almost too eager. After barely 10 minutes of questions, he offered me the position. Before I left, he said something odd. "One thing," Frank said. "What?" "If anyone asks about the basement, tell them it's closed." I laughed. Why would anyone ask about the basement? His smile disappeared. "They always do." For a second, I thought he was joking. But he wasn't smiling anymore. Then he quickly changed the subject. I should have paid more attention. My first few weeks were normal. The Velvet Room attracted hundreds of customers every weekend. The music was loud, the drinks flowed endlessly, people danced until sunrise. Most nights consisted of checking IDs, breaking up occasional arguments, and helping intoxicated customers find rides home. Nothing unusual, at least not at first. Then small things started happening. Employees would quit suddenly. Bartenders disappeared without notice. A DJ walked out during his shift and never returned. Whenever I asked why people kept leaving, nobody gave a clear answer. One bartender named Rachel Simmons seemed especially nervous whenever the subject came up. One night after closing, I asked her directly, "What's going on around here?" Rachel looked around to make sure nobody was listening. Then she lowered her voice. "You hear noises after closing?" "What kind of noises?" "Voices." I laughed. "You serious?" She didn't laugh back. "Very serious." I assumed she was messing with me, but the fear in her eyes felt real. 3 days later, she quit. No explanation. No goodbye. She simply vanished. A month passed. Then came the night everything changed. It was a Friday. The club was packed. Around midnight, I noticed a woman standing alone near the back hallway. That wasn't unusual. What was unusual was her appearance. She wore a black dress that looked decades old. Not vintage, old, like something from another era. Her pale skin almost seemed gray under the lights. And she wasn't dancing. She wasn't drinking. She was simply staring toward the basement door. The same basement Frank never wanted discussed. I approached her. "Ma'am, are you okay?" No response. "Do you need help finding someone?" Slowly, she turned toward me. I'll never forget her eyes. They looked empty. Not physically empty. Emotionally empty. Like there was nobody behind them. Then she asked a question. A simple question. "Do you hear them?" A chill ran through me. "Hear who?" "The people below." I blinked. "What people?" But she was already walking away. I followed her through the crowd. For a moment she remained visible. Then she disappeared. Completely. I searched the entire club. Nothing. No exits had opened. No cameras showed her leaving. It was as if she'd never been there. The next morning I reviewed security footage. I expected to find proof. Instead, I found something worse. The cameras showed me talking, standing alone. There was no woman, not on any camera. I watched the footage 3 times. My stomach twisted. Had I imagined the entire encounter? I wanted to believe that. Then I noticed something. Right before I approached the empty space where the woman supposedly stood, every camera flickered for less than a second, but it happened on every angle, the same moment. I brought the footage to Frank. His face went pale. He immediately closed the monitor. Forget it. What? Forget what you saw. You know something. No. Frank. He slammed his hand on the desk. I said forget it. For the first time since meeting him, I saw genuine fear, and that scared me more than anything. A week later, I discovered the truth, or at least part of it. One rainy evening, an older maintenance worker named Walter Green approached me during a break. Walter had worked there longer than anyone. If secrets existed, he knew them. You've seen her, haven't you? He asked. My heart stopped. The woman in black? Walter nodded. I felt a lump form in my throat. Who is she? Walter stared toward the dance floor. Then he sighed. This building wasn't always a nightclub. What was it? A hotel. I listened carefully. In 1934, Walter continued, a fire broke out downstairs. How many people died? His answer shocked me. 23. I stared at him. What? The basement used to hold private gambling rooms, illegal operations. One night a fire started. Why wasn't it reported? It was. He looked away. Most records disappeared. The silence that followed felt heavy. Then Walter said something I still remember, word for word. They never found all the bodies. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it. The story explained the strange atmosphere, the disappearances, the rumors, everything. Or so I thought. Then closing time arrived. Around 3:15 a.m., I was helping clear the last customers. The club emptied quickly. Within 20 minutes, only employees remained. Then the music stopped. Silence filled the building. That's when I heard it, a voice, very faint, somewhere below. At first I thought it was an employee. Then I heard another, and another. Whispers, dozens of whispers, coming from beneath the floor. My skin crawled. I followed the sound, step by step, until I reached the basement door. The whispers grew louder. People talking, crying, begging. The sounds seemed to come from deep underground. Every instinct told me to leave. Instead, I opened the door. The basement stairs descended into darkness. The air smelled damp and stale. I turned on my flashlight and started down. The whispers continued. The deeper I went, the louder they became. At the bottom stood a long corridor. Old brick walls stretched into darkness. Water dripped somewhere nearby. Then I noticed something strange. Footprints, fresh footprints. Leading farther inside, I followed them. The hallway eventually opened into a massive underground room, and there, illuminated by my flashlight, stood dozens of old chairs arranged in rows, facing a blackened section of wall. Burn marks covered everything. The fire. This was where it happened. Suddenly the whispers stopped. Complete silence. Then a woman's voice spoke directly behind me. You're not supposed to be here. I spun around. The woman in black stood only a few feet away. This time she was real, or at least she looked real. Her expression was sad, not threatening, sad. What are you? I whispered. She ignored the question. Instead, she pointed toward the burned wall. My flashlight moved, and that's when I saw them. Handprints, hundreds of them, burned into the bricks, as though people had desperately tried to escape. My stomach dropped. Then the woman spoke again. They locked the doors. I froze. They knew we were inside. The temperature suddenly plummeted. The room grew impossibly cold. Then voices exploded around me, screaming, crying, pounding. The sounds of panic echoed through the darkness. I covered my ears. The noise became unbearable. And then, everything stopped. Instantly. Silence. The woman was gone. The room was empty. I stood alone, shaking, terrified. The next morning I quit. Frank didn't argue. He didn't ask questions. He simply nodded, almost as though he expected it. Before leaving, I asked him one final thing. Did you ever go down there? Frank stared at me for a long moment. Then he quietly answered, "Once." "What happened?" His face turned pale. "I heard them." That was all he said. A few months later, the Velvet Room permanently closed. Officially, the owners blamed financial issues. Unofficially, rumors spread about employees refusing to work there. The building eventually sat abandoned, empty, silent, waiting. In 2024, curiosity got the better of me. I drove past the property. The nightclub was gone. The windows were boarded. Weeds covered the parking lot. The place looked forgotten. As I sat in my car, I glanced toward the second-floor windows. And that's when I saw her, the woman in black, standing motionless behind the dusty glass, watching me, exactly as she had years earlier. I blinked. She vanished. I never went back. Maybe what happened was psychological. Maybe stress caused hallucinations. Maybe there was another explanation. But every so often I remember those voices beneath the floor, the cries, the handprints, the woman who appeared where no cameras could see her. And whenever someone tells me ghost stories aren't real, I simply smile, because I used to think the same thing, until my final shift at the Velvet Room. Story 5, The Last Guest at Midnight. I never believed in ghost stories, not because I was brave, but because I had spent most of my life dealing with real problems. Ghosts seemed less frightening than unpaid bills, family struggles, and trying to build a future from nothing. My name is Ethan Carter, and in the summer of 2022, I got a job working security at a nightclub called Neon Pulse in Miami, Florida. At first, it felt like a dream. The club sat near the waterfront, glowing with purple and blue lights that could be seen from blocks away. Tourists loved it. Celebrities occasionally visited. The money was good, and after years of working low-paying jobs, I finally felt like things were turning around. But there was something strange about Neon Pulse. Something nobody talked about openly. Something waiting inside after midnight. I had moved to Miami after my father passed away. He had spent 30 years as a police officer in Ohio. When cancer took him, everything changed. Medical bills swallowed our savings. My mother moved in with my aunt, and I headed south searching for work. For nearly a year, I bounced between jobs before landing the security position. The nightclub manager was a man named Marcus Bennett. He was in his early 50s and carried himself like someone who had seen everything. During my first week, he showed me around the building. The main dance floor was enormous. Multiple bars stretched across the room. VIP lounges overlooked the crowd from above. The basement contained storage rooms and old maintenance tunnels dating back decades. As we toured the building, Marcus stopped in front of a steel door near the rear hallway. A keypad lock protected it. "What's in there?" I asked. Marcus hesitated. "Old maintenance area." "Can I see it?" "No." His answer came too quickly. Then he walked away. At the time, I thought nothing of it. A few weeks later, I was working a Friday night shift. The club was packed. Music thundered through the walls. Hundreds of people danced under flashing lights. Everything felt normal until around 2:15 a.m. A woman approached me near the entrance. She looked terrified. "Someone keeps following me." I scanned the crowd. "Who?" She pointed toward the dance floor. "There." But nobody stood where she pointed. Only dancers. "Maybe you lost sight of them." The woman shook her head. "No, he's been behind me all night." "What does he look like?" She swallowed. "A man wearing a gray suit." I looked again. Nothing. Then she said something strange. "He looks wet." "Wet?" "Like he just came out of the ocean." Goosebumps rose on my arms. Not because of what she said, because Miami was experiencing a drought. It hadn't rained in weeks. The woman left shortly afterward. I forgot about the conversation. Until the next night. Another customer reported seeing a man in a gray suit. Then another. Then another. Every description matched. Tall, middle-aged, pale skin, gray suit, water dripping from his clothes. Nobody ever saw him for more than a few seconds. Whenever security checked cameras, there was nothing. No man, no evidence, nothing. A month later, I finally asked Marcus about it. His face immediately changed. "Who told you?" "Customers." He sighed heavily. Then he closed his office door. "What I'm about to tell you stays here." I nodded. Marcus stared at the floor. 23 years ago, there was another nightclub here. I waited. It was called Harbor Lights. What happened? There was a hurricane evacuation warning. I remembered reading about severe storms hitting Florida years ago. Marcus continued. Most people left. His voice grew quieter. But one employee stayed behind. Why? He was trying to protect the owner's cash safe. The story sounded ridiculous. A life exchange for money. Yet it happened all the time. People made desperate decisions. The storm surge flooded the building. I felt cold. Marcus looked toward the window. The employee drowned inside? Silence filled the room. What was his name? Marcus answered immediately. Daniel Graves. That night curiosity got the better of me. I searched online. Old newspaper archives confirmed everything. A 28-year-old employee named Daniel Graves had disappeared during the hurricane. His body was never recovered. The floodwaters had destroyed much of the building. Eventually, the nightclub was rebuilt and renamed Neon Pulse. I stared at a black and white photograph accompanying the article. My stomach tightened. Daniel Graves was wearing a gray suit. The following weeks became increasingly strange. Employees began hearing footsteps in empty hallways. Bar staff reported finding puddles of seawater inside locked rooms. Cleaning crews quit unexpectedly. Nobody explained why. One janitor lasted only 3 days. When I asked what happened, he simply said, "Something watches people down there." Down where? The basement. Then he left. One Saturday night, around closing time, I found myself assigned to inspect the lower level. Most staff had already gone home. Only a few employees remained upstairs. The basement felt different from the rest of the club. Older, colder. The music above sounded distant. I walked past storage rooms lined with old supplies. Then I noticed something unusual. Water. A thin trail stretched across the concrete floor. I followed it. The trail led directly to the steel door Marcus had forbidden me from opening. The keypad light glowed green. Unlocked. For a moment I considered walking away. Instead I opened it. The smell hit me first. Salt water. Rot. Decay. Beyond the door lay an abandoned maintenance tunnel. Dust covered everything. Rust coated the walls. My flashlight beam revealed old electrical equipment and collapsed pipes. Then I saw footprints. Wet footprints. Fresh. Leading deeper into darkness. Every instinct told me to leave, but curiosity pushed me forward. The tunnel twisted underground for nearly 50 yards. Then it opened into a large chamber. I froze. The room was flooded. Several inches of seawater covered the floor. That made no sense. The ocean sat hundreds of yards away, yet waves gently rippled inside the chamber, as if connected to something far below. Then I heard a voice, a whisper. "Help me!" I spun around. Nobody. The voice came again. "Help me!" My flashlight shook. The sound seemed to emerge from the water itself. Then a figure slowly appeared at the far end of the room. A man, gray suit, water dripping from his body. Exactly as customers had described. Daniel Graves. Every survival instinct screamed at me to run, yet I couldn't move. Daniel stared directly at me. His eyes looked exhausted rather than threatening, like someone trapped, like someone waiting. Then he pointed toward a section of the flooded floor. Before I could react, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. I heard water splashing, fast, approaching. Panic exploded through my chest. I turned and sprinted. Behind me came the sound of footsteps crashing through water. Closer, closer, closer. I reached the tunnel and ran harder than I had ever run in my life. The footsteps continued, just behind me. I burst through the steel door and slammed it shut. Silence. Complete silence. The next morning I told Marcus everything. Instead of laughing, he looked devastated. What did he point at? A spot in the water. Marcus slowly sat down. Then he told me something he had never shared before. Years ago, renovation workers discovered evidence suggesting Daniel had become trapped beneath collapsed debris during the flood. They searched extensively. Nothing was found. The body remained missing. Marcus believed Daniel's remains were still somewhere beneath the building. 2 weeks later, construction crews arrived. Officially, they were repairing plumbing. Unofficially, they were searching. I helped supervise the operation. When workers broke through the flooded chamber floor, they discovered a hidden cavity. Inside lay human remains. The medical examiner later confirmed the identity. Daniel Graves, missing for 23 years, found at last. What happened afterward is the part I still struggle to explain. The strange sighting stopped. No more reports, no more footsteps, no more seawater appearing inside locked rooms. Employees noticed the difference immediately. The atmosphere changed. The building finally felt normal, peaceful. My final encounter happened 3 nights after the discovery. I was locking the main entrance around 3 a.m. The club was empty. The dance floor sat dark and silent. As I walked toward the parking lot, I glanced back through the glass doors. A man stood inside, gray suit, motionless, watching. My heart nearly stopped. Then he smiled. Not a frightening smile, a grateful one. The kind a person gives when a burden finally ends. A second later, the figure disappeared. I never saw him again. I still work security. I've seen fights, criminals, accidents, situations that can be explained. But nothing compares to what happened at Neon Pulse. Some people believe ghosts are angry spirits seeking revenge. Maybe some are. But sometimes, I think they're simply people whose stories never reached an ending. People waiting in the dark for someone to finally find them. And on quiet nights when the music stops and the building falls silent, I still remember the last guest who visited Neon Pulse. The one who came every night. The one nobody could explain. The one who waited 23 years to go home. Story 6. The Neon Pulse Incident. I never believed in ghost stories, at least not until the summer of 2021, when I took a security job at a nightclub called Neon Pulse in downtown Houston, Texas. Before I tell you what happened, you need to understand who I was back then. My name is Ethan Walker. I was 28 years old, recently divorced, and trying to rebuild my life after everything had fallen apart. My ex-wife had moved to Colorado with our daughter, and I was left alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of Houston. Bills were piling up. My savings were gone. When a friend told me Neon Pulse needed overnight security, I accepted immediately. The club was one of the most popular nightlife spots in Houston. Every Friday and Saturday night, hundreds of people packed inside. Music shook the walls. Colored lights flashed through clouds of smoke. Celebrities occasionally stopped by. The money was good. The problem was the rumors. According to longtime employees, strange things happened after closing. Bartenders claimed they heard voices coming from empty rooms. Janitors reported seeing a woman standing near the VIP balcony after everyone had gone home. Nobody took the story seriously. Neither did I at first. The owner, a heavyset man named Marcus Bennett, laughed when I asked him about the rumors. "Every old building has ghost stories," he said. "You'll be fine." The club itself had a strange history. Before becoming Neon Pulse, the building had been an abandoned theater from the 1940s. A fire had destroyed part of the structure decades earlier. Several people reportedly died in the blaze. The records were incomplete. Most people had forgotten about it. The nightclub opened years later and business exploded. Nobody cared about the building's past until strange things started happening. My first few weeks were completely normal. I checked exits, watched security cameras, escorted intoxicated customers outside. Easy work. Then one Thursday night, everything changed. The club closed at 2 a.m. By 2:45, only 3 employees remained inside. Me, a bartender named Ashley, and a janitor named Carlos. Around 3:10 a.m., Ashley walked into the security office. She looked nervous. "Ethan," she said. "Yeah? Did you call me a minute ago?" I frowned. "No." She stared at me. "I heard someone say my name. Probably Carlos." She slowly shook her head. "It sounded like a woman." I laughed. Ashley didn't. 20 minutes later, she left. Carlos finished cleaning and headed home. By 4 a.m., I was alone. The club felt completely different without music. The silence seemed unnatural. The massive dance floor stretched into darkness. Neon lights flickered occasionally. I sat in front of the security monitors. Everything appeared normal. Then camera 12 moved. I sat upright. Camera 12 overlooked the VIP balcony. For a moment, I thought someone was standing there. A woman. Long dark hair, white dress, facing away from the camera. My heart skipped. I zoomed in. Nobody. The balcony was empty. I told myself it had been a lighting reflection. Nothing more. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next night I saw her again. Same location, same white dress. This time she remained visible for almost 3 seconds before disappearing. I immediately ran upstairs. The balcony was empty. No signs of anyone entering or leaving. No hidden doors. Nothing. The following week, things became worse. One night I heard footsteps above me. Heavy footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. The sound crossed the VIP level. Back and forth. Back and forth. I grabbed my flashlight and investigated. Nobody was there. The footsteps stopped the instant I reached the stairs. A cold feeling settled into my stomach. Something wasn't right. The next morning, I reviewed security footage. The cameras showed absolutely nothing. Yet the audio system recorded the footsteps clearly. I played the recording for Marcus. He looked uncomfortable. Then he said something strange. "Don't stay upstairs after 3 a.m. "What? Just don't." "Why?" Marcus avoided eye contact. "Trust me." That answer bothered me, so I started researching the building's history. What I found surprised me. The fire that destroyed part of the theater happened in 1954. A young singer named Claire Donovan had been rehearsing on stage when the fire broke out. Witnesses claimed she became trapped inside. Her body was never recovered. Many believed she died somewhere within the building. Others believed she escaped. Nobody knew for certain. Then I found an old newspaper photograph. My blood turned cold. The woman in the picture had long dark hair and a white performance dress. The same woman I kept seeing. Claire Donovan. I stared at the screen for several minutes. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. That weekend brought the worst incident yet. Saturday nights were always chaotic. By closing time, I was exhausted. The final customer left around 2:30 a.m. Employees cleaned quickly and departed. At 3:20 a.m., I sat alone in the security room. Then every monitor went black, all 12 screens, at the same time. The room fell silent. A second later, the emergency lights activated. Red light flooded the hallway outside. I grabbed my radio. Nothing. No signal. Then I heard music, faint music, coming from the main dance floor. My heart pounded. The sound resembled an old jazz performance. Definitely not nightclub music. Slow, melancholy, ancient. I stepped into the hallway. The music grew louder. Every instinct told me to leave. Instead, I followed it. The dance floor appeared empty, yet the music continued. I swept my flashlight across the room. Nothing. Then I looked toward the stage. Someone stood there. A woman, white dress, dark hair, perfectly still. I froze. The music stopped instantly. The figure slowly turned toward me. I couldn't see her face. The stage lights flickered. When they stabilized, she was gone. A loud crash exploded from the VIP level above. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Something had fallen. I ran upstairs. One of the cocktail tables lay overturned. The heavy metal table should have required considerable force to move. No one was there. Then I noticed something on the floor. A silver necklace. Old-fashioned, covered in dust. I picked it up. Engraved on the back were 2 words. Claire D. I couldn't breathe. The next day I showed the necklace to Marcus. His face turned pale. "Where did you get this?" "VIP balcony." Marcus sat down heavily. For several seconds he said nothing. Finally he revealed the truth. Years earlier during renovations, workers discovered human remains sealed behind a section of wall near the upper balcony. Construction halted briefly. Authorities investigated. The remains were too damaged for immediate identification. The case eventually faded from public attention. Marcus always suspected the remains belonged to Claire Donovan, but the official records were never conclusive. The discovery occurred precisely where employees reported seeing the mysterious woman. I wanted to quit immediately, but curiosity kept me there, a mistake I would regret forever. 3 nights later, I worked another overnight shift. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the security cameras failed again. Every screen black. The old jazz music returned, this time louder, much louder. I followed the sound upstairs. The VIP balcony seemed unusually cold. My breath became visible. Then I heard a woman's voice, soft, whispering, "Help me!" The voice came from behind a decorative wall panel. My flashlight trembled in my hands. The wall section matched the area where the remains had been discovered years earlier. The whisper came again. "Help me!" I approached slowly. Then something happened that still gives me nightmares. A handprint appeared on the wall, from the inside, as if someone trapped behind it was pressing outward. I stumbled backward. The handprint remained visible for several seconds, then vanished. The lights exploded. Every bulb on the balcony burst simultaneously. Glass rained around me. I ran. I didn't walk. I didn't investigate. I ran all the way downstairs and out the front door. I sat in my car until sunrise. The following morning, I resigned. Marcus didn't try to stop me. In fact, he seemed relieved. Years have passed since then. Neon Pulse still operates today. People dance there every weekend. Most visitors know nothing about Claire Donovan, nothing about the fire, nothing about the strange events reported after closing time. Maybe there's a logical explanation. Maybe stress and exhaustion affected my judgment. Maybe. But I still have the necklace. It's locked inside a small box in my apartment. Sometimes I consider throwing it away. Yet every time I touch it, I remember that cold balcony, that whisper, that handprint, and the woman standing alone beneath the stage lights, waiting, watching, as if she never truly left the building. And if you ever find yourself inside a nightclub after closing, hearing music that nobody else can hear, my advice is simple. Don't follow it, because some performances never end.